going to be close to what Ben is struggling with and in his data set. And I think we have a lot to talk about. So hopefully what I'm going to talk in some of our projects will be useful to the issues that Ben and et al. Are having, and perhaps we can help each other quite a lot. So I will start off just by saying a little bit about what happened to the urban group. I mean, the main question we had was what is urban, and that didn't really go much further for a few reasons. So one of the reasons why things didn't move forward on this group was that a lot of the things that we asked were already answered. So we found a bunch of published literature and also data sets from several agencies that kind of included different aspects of what we wanted to know. So we didn't see the point in reinventing the wheel and trying to do things all over again. Also, last year there was this talk by Dr. Shuemei Bei at the BS meeting. I don't know if you guys saw that, and she and she kind of hit home when she said that there is someone asked her about definitions of urban areas and what is urban across the globe, and if it would be important to kind of get a consensus of what's urban and how to define urban areas. And she was very clear when she said there is no consensus, and that she thought that it doesn't really matter. Because you can still do a lot of work on urban areas and urban ecology without having consensus on how to define urbanization or urban areas. So that was some kind of important messages. And we tried an idea with Google Maps where we wanted to crawl the Google Maps server and find relevant information for invasion ecology in urban areas. So, for instance, density of pet shops and density of flower shops and things related to introduction or pathways of dispersal of invasive species. But it didn't happen for several reasons. We didn't have the real technical knowledge to do that, and we needed some money as well in order to pay Google for this data, and we didn't have that. So it didn't fly. We couldn't really move forward with this. So the group that was supposed to discuss what's urban didn't really fly. So what I'm going to talk to you instead is about the work that we have been doing on urban invasions here in Brazil. So mostly the work's being done by my lab and these folks here, Carol, which you guys heard from a couple talks ago, Ana Luisa, Gustavo Eringer, Jonathan Almeida, and Carla Tavares. So we have Gustavo is a postdoc in the lab, and Carla and Carol are PhD students. Jonathan is a master's student, and Ana Luisa Botan is an intern in the lab. So what we call here in Brazil scientific initiation or something of that sort. And we have a few projects going on, and this is one that I think would be of most interest to or most relation to the talk we had before by Ben, where we are looking at iNaturalist data to see if citizen science data can be used to determine the presence and situation of invasive alien species in cities. This is a project that we are having a lot of help from Ana Luisa. She's the one that is getting the data from iNaturalist and working on filtering out all the relevant data. And we are we are working together on this project. And the idea is, so we downloaded data from iNaturalist. We got 192,000 records of invasive alien species. These became about 93,000 records for urban areas. So we used some raster files of urban areas around the globe to intersect and crop out the invasive species that were present in urban areas. From these 93,000, 92,000 had latitude and longitude data, and 83,000 of it were considered research grade data. So these are data that have been confirmed by at least two different people. That's the iNaturalist standard for research grade. Then we are going to compare these records from iNaturalist with records on the invasive species in the global register of introduced and invasive species. So the idea is that we have the iNaturalist data set filtered only with the data of the invasive species. And I think that after doing this, we end up with data sets from more than 60 countries. I think there are data for 64 different countries. I don't remember exactly how many cities, but it's a huge data set. And interestingly, compared to Ben's data, the one that he showed, for iNaturalist, there is a lot of data on invertebrates, so insects, and not a lot of data for plants. And so I think it could potentially complement really well. Another thing we have going on is looking at the invasive alien trees in urban areas. So we are, for this, we are all working only with data from Brazil, from Brazilian cities, where we are comparing the role of climate and urbanization as environmental filters for invasive alien trees in urban areas. So we collected about 131 scientific papers on lists of invasive alien species, or invasive alien trees, sorry, in urban areas. That came out to be 94 different cities out of the 5,500 cities we have in the country. And this generated data for about 73 invasive alien trees. Here in the center, you have the map where you see the Brazilian cities we found data for, and the size of the circle represents the number of invasive alien trees found on each city. So we have some data for the Amazon region, but not a lot. We also don't have a lot of data for the Cerrado region. Most of the information comes from the Atlantic Forest region, which makes sense because that's where most of the cities or the larger cities are located. And when we look at the reasons for, or at least for the relationships between climate and urbanization filters for invasive alien species richness and composition, we find that urbanization explains most of the variation in invasive alien tree richness, but in terms of invasive alien tree composition, then climate is one of them, or is perhaps the main filter. So these are some of the results we have so far. Space here means spatial autocorrelation, so that the closer the cities are from each other, the more similar the composition of invasive alien trees are. Also, there is this expected pattern where the more people, the more invasive alien tree species you find in a city. So nothing really surprising there. But what's more interesting here is on the right hand side, where you see this MDS, where the different drivers are pointing on opposite directions. So you have climate influencing species in one direction of the first axis, and urbanization driving species in another direction in the first axis. So these are really drivers that are acting in different scales. Another project that we have going on is the one that Carol talked about. So I'm not going to repeat what she just said a couple talks ago, but she's doing her PhD in 6 different cities, and she's just coming up with the first results of her work. Uh, we also have another PhD student, Carla Tavares, who is working on the same cities as Carol is working in, but Carla is working with bees, and her focus is not only alien bees or invasive bees. She's looking at bees in general. Several of these species are introduced, so of course it's going to be of interest to GUBIC. Um, Later on, but she's looking at a more broad topic of conservation of bees in urban areas. So comparing land sharing and land sparing strategies for the conservation of bee biodiversity. Um, she she also just finished her fieldwork this month together with Carol. So they worked together in the field. So they finished together, of course. And she collected more than 5,000 bee individuals from over 100 species of bees. So there's a lot of material for her to go about in the next few months or the next several months. So you guys should keep an eye on her work if you are interested in bees in urban areas. And just to finish off, we have the work that's being done by Jonathan in his master's, which is looking at the dispersal syndromes in urban plants. Uh, and he's asking questions related to urbanization being an environmental filter or evolutionary force of dispersal traits in spontaneous plants in cities. So not only invasive plants, but spontaneous plants. So no, it doesn't include any cultivated plant. It's only about plants that grow mostly as what people would usually call weeds in cities. And he's looking at different intensities of urbanizations, in the sense that he wants to know if more intense urbanized areas or less intense urbanized areas uh, produce different uh, dispersal characteristics in plant communities. Um, so as you can see, we are not. I'm not working on the what's urban question anymore, because I think that didn't produce any meaningful result. But instead, we are working on gathering data on and analyzing urban invasive species in mostly here in Brazil at different scales, because we realized that after we saw the GUBIC data sets that were put together, that as usual, there was a big gap of data on Brazil and South America, at least, as a lot of data as some data is available on the literature, but not a lot of data is actually available for specific data sets, and that gathering data should be our focus more than trying to come up with large scale patterns on things that we know very little about. So with that, we have a few steps on the horizon, things that we want to do in the near future, which is to get funding to expand data collection and regional collaborations. So, as many of you know, we have a huge fiscal crisis here in Brazil, and with that, science is struggling a lot. So there isn't really a lot of funding available. It's been really hard to get money to go out and collect data in the field. So I tried a couple proposals, and I've been trying two more this year, and let's see what happens. Wish me luck. I'm also very keen for us to come up with a standard method for sampling urban invasions. And I think that would be really important and positive for GUBIC to have similar strategies for collecting data and sampling, so that we can directly compare results. And in terms of subjects of research, really keen to keep working on impacts of urban invasions on biodiversity, people, and nature's contribution to people. So with that, I thank you all for your attention, and we are open for collaborations. And I think that's the main idea of this talk, is kind of to showcase the ideas that have been moving forward here in our lab in Brazil that are related to GUBIC. And you are all very much welcome to join us, help us, and work with us. And we are also keen to work with you guys on uh, going further and moving further on this topic. So thank you very much. And I think that's it what I have for today.